What's up, guys? Welcome back to NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. In a few moments, I'll be joined by Steph Sanchez, host of 49K Podcast, talking about the Senior Bowl and about some of the recent Niner trade rumors. Let's go ahead and bring her on right now. Are you ready, Steph? Wait for a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, here we go. Steph, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Andre? Good to be on.
What's up? Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I saw you getting your stream together. I was like, oh, I hope she has enough time. But Steph, let me ask you. Obviously everyone knows you from your podcast, which is the Steph 49K podcast. You can find her on YouTube and wherever you find podcasts. It's a great show, by the way. She is really good insight into the 49ers. I really enjoy watching her content. But let me ask you. You were just at the Senior Bowl. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that experience was like, and what are the players that you saw that you think are just phenomenal players, phenomenal prospects for the 49ers?
Yeah, it was a great week. Being the fact that the 49ers didn't make the playoffs, the one, I guess, positive is that I did get a chance to dive into these players a little bit early and get into draft mode earlier than I normally would. So
Yeah.
I went into it a little prepared, already had some, guys circled that I wanted to check out and see. So that was nice. And of course, there's always those guys that you don't check out beforehand that do end up standing out throughout the week and end up helping their draft stock. So, yeah, I'd say definitely one of those guys was Gray Zabel, NDSU offensive lineman. He dominated the week working in the interior, just all 3 days of practice. He definitely lifted his stock and one-on-ones, team periods, all of that. He looked great, and I think he answered a lot of questions for teams that may have been concerned about the fact that he went to NDSU and smaller school and all
Right.
that.
Right.
How is he going to look against NFL tier guys? So I think he did great. I'd say like other guys, Mike Green, I thought, of course, also
He was like the
alleviated
standout.
concerns. He was definitely a standout, and so he alleviated any concerns about his arm length and things like that. And he was winning consistently as well at the Senior Bowl. And then there's other guys that pop out from other positions. Wide receiver like Jack Besh or Beck out of TCU. He was one that definitely impressed, and he ended up having the game-winning touchdown for the
Yeah.
game. So I think that was big, and I really like his style of play. As far as tight ends go, Arroyo was one who definitely stood out and just looked like a natural. His body, his frame is impressive, and then you see the way he moves, and he's very smooth. Uh, and so I think he was really impressive out of that week. As far as like other defensive linemen go, Walter Nolan was definitely one of those guys that I think it could potentially be an option for the 49ers. At 11, he had a strong week as well. Uh, I'm trying to remember his name. Giannis Peebles. I don't know if I'm saying his first name correctly, but Peebles, impressive. David Walker, also another guy. So there's so much talent like across the board, especially in the trenches. There were a lot of guys I came away with. I wouldn't mind them being Niners. So it was a great week and yeah, just a lot of talent.
Yeah. No. I think it was really awesome that you got a chance to be there. Obviously, you were there with other content creators like Wayne Breezy. I think John Chapman was there. Johnny Dell was there. I was talking to him almost the whole time he was there, and he was even telling me how like you guys were on one side, and then across the way you can see John Lynch and D'Amico Ryans and all those guys. I mean, what was that like seeing those big heads of those teams, kind of walking around looking at the same players that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, it's my third year going to the Senior Bowl, so definitely not new to that part of it. And I've always taken a special interest to front office and what they might be interested in the draft. For some
Right.
reason, like I've always just been gravitated to those kind of reports. Oh, they're meeting with this player and all that. Like I love that. And so really that's kind of why I started the draft sheet to begin with and the tracker, because I want to be able to identify trends of who the 49ers are interested in this current regime, right? What do they look for and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, seeing them, I'm definitely in tune to what they're looking at. And I will say, like, John Lynch, Derek Ahmad, all those guys, they were very interested in the trenches as well. 2 days in a row, especially on the national team side. That's the same. That was the defensive line, or sorry, the edges that KJ Wright was coaching up. Remember, on the national
Right.
team. So Mike Green, there's a couple other guys on that side as well. They were like front and center to the OLDL one-on-ones for the national team practices 2 days in a row. And I think on the first day they checked out the American team one-on-ones for the trenches as well. And so to me, I'm like, I definitely feel like they'll go defensive line with the 11th pick. And if I had to guess, maybe they're really interested in someone from the national team, or maybe just because KJ Wright's coaching them, they're taking a special interest to some of those guys. But yeah, I definitely tried to pay attention a little extra to what they were paying attention to.
Right. And then you posted this over on X. This is your mock draft. It's a little small, sorry. But this is the one you put together. And then talk to me a little bit about this. Now you picked Shamir Stewart as their round 1 pick, I want to say.
Yes. So in this one, which it's the first of many mock drafts that I'm going to do. Usually, I wait a little before posting one because people do criticize mock drafts, and actually
Yeah.
that pick was one that people did criticize. Shamar Stewart at 16, I traded back, and so as I said, this mock draft was very influenced by Senior Bowl week and just what I saw, some guys that I liked. So this isn't really what I think necessarily the 49ers end up doing, but just some guys that I like. Shamar Stewart was a standout of the week at the Senior Bowl, so much so that he didn't even go to the third practice. He didn't even play in the game because he was like, I'm done. I did what I needed to do. I proved what I needed to. Teams
Yeah.
have taken a liking to it. So he pieced out after the first 2 practices because, he had such dominant days. So I did go with Stewart here at 16. Walter Nolan was available, but I was a bit of a prisoner of the ADP rankings in that moment. So I didn't go for him at 16. But like I said, I do think the 49ers would take him in the first round. Like, I do think that would fit a need, and it's a big need. And just based on the way he plays, the impact that he had, at Ole Miss, I think the 49ers could use some of that impact on their interior, the defensive line. And so I do think Nolan would definitely be an option there as well.
Yeah, I think that the defensive line is where I think they're going to use that first pick on the number 11 pick, or maybe if they trade back. Either way, I really feel like the defensive line is where they're going to go. Like, they can't help themselves, especially if there's a pass rusher and an edge rusher that is available to them. I feel like Shanahan Lynch just won't be able to resist and go after him instead of going for the offensive line. Now, we talk about how much they love to bring in those defensive ends or pass rushers. They've been really big on that since Lynch and Shanahan took over. One of the main topics that we've been talking about lately is Myles Garrett. Now, there's this big talk because Myles Garrett said, I want to be traded. He requested a trade. The Browns formally said, we're not planning on trading him, but that doesn't really matter. You can say it all you want. If the player wants to get traded, then essentially he has all the leverage that he needs because he can then hold out if he wanted to. So let's talk about Myles Garrett, okay? I mean, the guy even went as far as to post the letters basically saying, thanks for everything, I'll see you guys later. So I don't see how they're going to, talk him into staying. Like, hey, look, We know you posted a letter, but hey, we'll give you some more money. No, I think the writing's on the wall. He sees that, hey, look, this is not an organization that's going to go anywhere. They invested all this money into Deshaun Watson, and that's been an absolute joke. Him and Justin Tucker are on the couch together trying to figure out what to do next. But here's the thing. When we talk about a trade for Myles Garrett, I think that this is probably the biggest game changer trade that they could possibly do. If they made this move and then didn't even do anything else, it would make their team so much better having him opposite Nick Bosa. Now, obviously, look, there's a lot that is going to be involved in a trade for Myles Garrett, and the asking price is not going to be just like one player, one draft pick. No, it's going to be more, it's going to be a whole package. But what do you think about the prospect of trading for Myles Garrett?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. The 49ers have to be on the phone, as I'm sure 31 other teams, will be on the phone because it's a no-brainer for every team. I mean, I think that's the type of impact that Myles Garrett has and the type of player he is. You hear the word generational get thrown out a lot to describe certain players. I don't think it's any exaggeration or a stretch to describe Myles Garrett in that way. So I agree. I think he would be the game changer of all game changers for the 49ers, who do have a need at edge rusher opposite Bosa, right? You have been trying to find someone that can, I don't think you need someone that isn't as impactful as Bosa. I think they'd probably be happy with someone just serviceable, like they've had with Omenihu or Ebukam, or even Dean Ford in the past. But like, if an opportunity like this presents itself, you take it, right? Like you have to explore it. And I think Myles Garrett would be the kind of player that you find a way to make it work. Obviously, I think we know it would take a lot. I think the only thing working against the Browns in this case is that he's 29. So like what would some teams be willing to give up for that? I think the 49ers wouldn't care about that as much. I see fans care about it, which I don't think it's a big deal. I think at 29, 30, 31, Myles Garrett would be more impactful than any rookie, any two rookies that you can get in the next two drafts at pick 11 or, wherever else you're picking next season. So, I mean, that to me makes it the no-brainer. There'd obviously be some things to work out for both teams because from the Browns end, it doesn't make a lot of sense financially. They would have to there's some dead cap to his contract if they do trade him, especially if they traded him before June 1st. So I think the likeliness is that they have this hang around, around the draft, see if someone makes a ridiculous offer you can't refuse. But I think it makes more sense for them to wait until after June 1st. Will teams still be interested? Then I think the 49ers definitely would be. I think the 49ers have to go all in on 2025. You got Salah back. You're looking at some guys who are at the end of their peak, I would think. And so I think you got to maximize what you can for this season. And so going after Myles Garrett would be super aggressive, but I think that's the mentality that they need to go into for this offseason.
I mean, could you imagine if they got this guy and he was on the defensive line with Nick Bosa? And not only that, but like, okay, so let's take a look at Myles Garrett in terms of his contract. He's scheduled to make what, $1 million, and then over here it's and then he has an $18 million option. But still, I think you can make this work. And basically, you have him for the next 2 years, the season coming up and the season after, and that's huge that you have team control for an additional year. Now, I really do think that. I mean, look, you're looking at an $18 million option. They might look to do a sign and trade where they give him a new contract. And if they're able to reduce the amount of money that they're going to be paying him this next season, then imagine this. Imagine they're able to get him at a lower rate for next season, not for forever, but just for next season. That would allow them to then go out and sign a guy like DJ Jones, right? So now you have, imagine Bosa, DJ Jones, Malik Collins, and Myles Garrett. I mean, that is That is nasty. And plus, DJ Jones is going to help shore up the run defense up the middle. And you still got guys like Jordan Elliott who can now back him up as opposed to being out there more than he wanted to be. I also believe that at this point, maybe you do hang on to Leonard Floyd. I mean, it'd be awesome to have Leonard Floyd as like the sub in for the two of them, but based on his contract, they may let him go. But let's just say hypothetically, like in a fantasy world, if they were able to keep him, that would be unstoppable of a defensive line, and let alone just Bosa and Myles Garrett. And I think that if you get a guy like Myles Garrett, I think the Niners become automatic Super Bowl favorites. Because you hear other teams like Lions fans saying, "Oh, the Lions should go get him," but the Niners have a number 11 pick, so it's like we're giving you a damn near top 10 pick on top of other draft picks and other players for him. I've even seen a trade request or a trade proposal, I should say, where the Niners would send 3 draft picks, obviously number 11 pick, a second round pick, a third round pick, and Leonard Floyd, so that at least they have a defensive end to replace him with, which I don't know if they would actually do that, but I think that if you threw it a package that had the number 11 pick plus, let's say, 2 or 3 more picks, I would sacrifice that, because it's funny because, like you said, the draft picks are not a sure thing. This guy is a sure thing. And you know, so many content creators, including myself, have talked about, hey, look, the Niners can't fuck up this draft. They really got to focus on getting a lot of good players. But then when the name Myles Garrett comes along, we're like, dude, give him everything. Give him everything, you know? So I really think that this is a guy that is a complete game changer for the Niners. And not only that, but you got Diamond, who's over here trying to recruit Myles Garrett, which I loved. I was like, dude, thank God. Thank you so much for doing that. I wish more teams or more players would do that, right? And here he says, what type of animal you want to be? We got hyenas, bears, lions, and gorillas. I mean, that's awesome. I just think that bearing injury, if we get Myles Garrett, there's no one that can stop us. Nobody. The pass rush would be unstoppable.
I agree with that. That's why I do think the 49ers are going to go for it. I think they'll do more than just the due diligence. I do think I wouldn't be surprised if in some months, you know, you get the report of finalists for Myles Garrett. The 49ers would be one of those listed teams. I think they can afford to make that gamble, and it's not really much of a gamble. I think 49er fans are a little jaded of giving up a lot of draft picks, especially first-round draft picks.
Yeah, this is not Trey Lance. It's not Trey Lance.
It's not Trey Lance. To your point, this isn't. It's not a gamble, and it's not a. They traded up draft picks for a draft pick. You know what I mean? Like, they traded up draft picks for a drafted player. This is draft picks for a known commodity, someone who's the top at their position. And who even still, like we're saying, at 29 is still better than what you're going to be getting out of an unknown draft pick.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why, to me, it's a no-brainer for them to do it. And I think they have the picks to make it work. To your point, an 11 overall pick, I think, would entice the Browns to think about it a little bit harder than some other teams that and look, he wants to go to a good team. As far as the teams that are picking early, I think the 49ers are the best team picking early. Like, so you give Myles Garrett what he's looking for, which is a good team that gives him a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, and the Browns get what they want, which is a higher draft pick. So I think it makes things interesting, right? As far as negotiation goes, I think the 49ers have an enticing bargaining chip in having the 11th overall pick.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking with Steph Sanchez, host of 49K Podcast. You can find her on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. We got 80 watching right now. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow my account over on X, which is DreArea Sports, and follow Steph over at Steph49K over on X as well. So here's a trade proposal that was put out there by what is this, ML Football. It says the Browns have received number 11 pick, a 2025 third round pick, a 2025, two 2025 third round picks. I think it'd take more than that. I think you have to throw in probably another draft pick from either this year or next year because they probably want a second rounder somewhere in there. But I think we have the draft capital right now. I mean, we were talking about the Niners had like what 10 draft picks in this upcoming draft. It was
Yeah.
going to be
Yep.
12 at one point. So they have the draft picks to do this. And yes, you are sacrificing a lot in terms of like the future of your roster, but this is a for sure thing. This is like similar to the Christian McCaffrey trade. We traded a lot, but we knew that McCaffrey was a sure thing. And he was. He was amazing until last year when he had the injuries, which destroyed the whole season. Anyway, so we don't want to talk about last season. We want to talk about the future. But it would definitely spice things up. And for content creation, I mean, look, dude, if they got Myles Garrett, we'd have a ton to talk about every single day. And the excitement would be through the freaking roof. It'd be crazy. I got one more from my good friend Sterling Bennett. I think this is more of a joke, but let's see. He says, Myles Garrett trade proposal. 49ers receive Myles Garrett. The Browns receive a 2025 first round pick, number 11 pick, and Jake Moody. I think include Jake Moody in any trade.
That's a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a joke.
That's an epic troll, but it's a good one.
It's a good one.
Because hey, they could use a kicker out there, right? So we gotta lightly use Jake Moody. But I've seen others as well, like send them Debo or something like that. And I only tweeted about this because someone in my live chat brought it up. Is like, oh, what if they want Brock? Which would, you think about it, it actually would make sense if they inquired about Brock. Seeing as how the 49ers haven't committed to him yet longer term. I don't think that happens.
No, I don't.
just
But I mean, if they were to say, I want Brock, I would say no. Like, because then let's say you trade Brock, then what are you going to do? You're going to go try and sign Sam Darnold and then watch him fold like a lawn chair in the playoffs like he did last year? He looked awful in the playoffs. Sam Darnold. Yeah, I was like, oh, there he is. Bad. There's our boy.
Exceptionally bad.
Yeah. Exceptionally bad. It was awful. We got about 5 minutes left with Steph. I wanted to ask you real quick. When we talk about Brock Purdy, there's a new report that says that that Brock Purdy could end up getting a contract that pays him between 55 and 60 million. I'm thinking now it's at least 60 million. I thought 51 would be a starting point. I'm thinking now it's going to be somewhere around $60 million. It says, yeah, I think that's going to be the number that we wind up setting. Let's make it clear, though. I don't think Brock Purdy's sitting there going, I'm demanding. I want to be the highest paid quarterback. I think he just wants to be paid what he's worth and continue to improve and get them back to the Super Bowl. This is from Diana Rossini. What do you think about his contract? Do you think it's going to start upwards of 60 million, or do you think that they can get him to start at around 55 million?
I honestly think this is the ideal range for probably both sides. When I've been asked, like, what do you think he's going to get paid? This is the exact range that I mentioned. Yeah. Although I've been saying 55 to 61 because there's that slight chance that him and his agent will try to push to be the market setter, which would, be above Dak Prescott's 60. So, yeah, this is the ideal range, I think, because, to Diana's point, I don't think he's necessarily driven by being the top paid guy. I think his agent, if anything, will try to get that. But I think he would be happy with 55 to 60. If you look at the other guys who are in that range, I think it's a respectable range for Brock to be in, just based on, look, we have a year and a half of Brock being really good, but we also have 2024 of Brock being, a little, it wasn't the same type of performance we had seen from Brock. So like we have like this, it also wasn't as terrible as I think some fans make it seem. So I don't want to make it seem like it's a canyon of what he could be in 2025. But even still, like I do think just it was different enough where I think it was enough to give the 49ers some pause about paying him 60. Because if he had the same type of performance that he had in 2023 and the half of 2022, I don't even think you think twice about it. I think you hand him the blank check and say, here's 60, 61 and whatnot, right? But because of this 2024 season that he had, I think, you want to protect yourself a little bit, not to mention, the injuries that he's dealt with and how, he had that little elbow thing at the end of
Yeah.
24. So I think, which, seemed like it wasn't that serious, but even still, um, yeah, I think the APY, of course, is not as important, but it is. I look at the APY as like the headline, right? People
Yeah.
are going to read that. And no one really cares about what happens after that. Sometimes some players do, right? Like for some players, the guarantees are the headline. But
Right.
based on everything that I'm hearing about Brock and his contract to this point, I think APY is going to be, the big thing. And that's probably good for the 49ers because I think they can get away with, paying him between 55, 60 in APY, but they could protect themselves as far as the guarantees go. If you look at Jordan Love's contract, his guarantees are pretty low, and I think it's kind of the same thing, right? Like the similar. They're paying him after just one season of seeing him as a starter, right? So in that sense, they're protecting themselves a little bit, and so yeah, I mean, I think the 49ers will kind of look to do the same thing. I do trust that it'll be structured in a way that's beneficial and safe for the team and not too crazy. But yeah, as far as the APY goes, I'd be comfortable with that range that Diana mentioned.
Absolutely. We're talking with
Oh,
Steph
you're muted.
Sanchez.
Oh, sorry. For a second, you
Uh,
were muted.
oh,
No,
okay.
never mind.
We're talking with Steph Sanchez, who's streaming live from Cell Block 9. Steph, as we round things out, where can everyone find you and all of your content?
I am at work, so yeah, it basically is a cell block. You can find me at Steph49K at pretty much all the major social media platforms, Twitter, or X, Instagram, what's the other, YouTube,
Everywhere.
TikTok, everywhere, all the big ones. Steph49K. So make sure you guys check that out. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much, Steph, for coming on here. When we come back, we'll be talking Golden State Warriors basketball and trade rumors right here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.